So this is the executive order that we are working with. And I'm not going to go through it. I'm going to spare you that. I did that for you. But this is the document of all of the kind of directives that we have to follow. So 12 pages, I have boiled it down to the necessary information for you. So what we're going to do first is this piece right here. So what we need to do in order to be open and running for business is provide a training, a COVID-19 training. So this is what you guys are going to experience today. Okay. Okay, so this is the image that you guys have kind of all come to know and hate from COVID-19. I'm just going to do a brief overview. I know this is, information that you've heard 1,000 times, but just so you and I have the same understanding, the symptoms of COVID-19, the most common ones are fever, coughing, shortness of breath. However, the symptoms have appear 2 days or as long as 14 days after exposure, and some people don't have any symptoms whatsoever. So that's kind of the tricky part of this virus.
Sarah, can I just interject for a quick second? The reason we got to go through this, you guys, just to put a little why behind this, is to follow that executive order, we need to kind of follow a series of steps here. And so forgive us for maybe being redundant here as Sarah goes through this, but exactly. These are part of the protocols that we have to check off the boxes to be compliant. So just give you a little background there.
Yes, thank you, Jason. Okay, and so how it's transmitted is from these kind of gross little droplets. So I'm sorry for the a little bit of a gross image here, but I just want to point out that the single sneeze can produce 10,000 droplets. A cough can do up to 3,000, and they can remain live on surfaces such as cardboard, stainless steel, and plastic. So that is why we have the cleaning protocols that we have that I'll talk about in a little bit. And then this is just the good resources if you need some more information through the OSHA website, the CDC, NEOSH. So that is where you can go to find the critical information. So this is what we are going to have you guys be doing today. This is the office reopening checklist. So this should be provided to you as a hard copy, or I guess electronic. However you guys want to do that. But we are going to go through this training. Then we're going to do a quick overview of the safety procedures that you guys need to have on hand per the order. And per that, we need to identify a designated workplace supervisor and a backup. And this person is in charge of kind of all of the COVID-19 procedures we have for the office. So we thought that the sales manager would be the best supervisor with the key ASC as backup. And this is in case that, somebody comes in and checks to see if we're following all of the mandations, but also to make sure that you guys in the office are following, wearing masks, cleaning appropriately, things like that. So we are also going to have you guys assign dedicated entry points for employees or agents where necessary to avoid choke points. Post the appropriate signage, so hand hygiene, social distancing, things like that. Ensure that you guys have all of the materials that you need in place, such as the barriers and shields, which Carrie, correct me if I heard you correctly this morning, they are not, have not arrived yet, but they are coming. Disinfecting materials, hand sanitizer, and your masks as well. And we are providing masks for you. You have to order them through Schmidt Resources if you have not already. But you also should have, your own mask on hand as well too, from, wearing day to day prior to being in the workplace. Place social distancing markers on the floor where necessary to kind of direct traffic and ensure social distancing takes place, especially, in the front lobby areas, those front of the ASC desks. So nobody is crowding up on you guys at that front desk. Follow the cleaning protocols per the safety procedures document. Per the mandate, you need to clean your personal workspace 2 times a day at a minimum. Make sure that you are wearing your mask as appropriate. I'm sorry. Identify high risk, high traffic areas in the office. So, routes to the bathroom, the coffee maker, the copy machine, things like that. So we can apply social distancing markings, even, how they do at the grocery store, like the one-way traffic or anything like that. Anything to make choke points in high risk areas a little bit less high risk. And then remove chairs from meeting and break rooms to adhere to social distancing standards. Tom had a good point this morning where, most of the the meeting rooms, you could have, an agent at one end and the clients at the other end to adhere to social distancing. That's totally fine. Just whatever it needs to do per your specific break room to adhere to these standards. So personal protective equipment, these two pieces right here are per the order. Require face coverings to be worn when employees cannot consistently maintain 6 feet of separation from other individuals, and require face coverings in shared spaces. That includes in-person meetings, in restrooms, hallways, etc. We are not expecting you to have to wear your mask, 24/7 while you're in the office, especially if you're sitting behind the plexiglass shield. But if a customer walks in, or if you can't maintain that 6 feet of space, then definitely you're required to be wearing your mask. This is from the safety procedures. So this is our infection control practices. This is kind of the cleaning routine that we're expecting to take place. And then per the order, to wipe down your own personal workspace at least twice daily. And then we have a coronavirus deep cleaning and disinfection protocol if there is the instance where there is somebody in the office that has tested positive for COVID-19. So every morning, or at the start of each workday, you are going to be required to fill out the self-screening form. It's located in Schmidt Resources. I'll show you how to get there once we're done with the PowerPoint. But it is just an electronic form. You answer a few questions. The main thing is that if any of these answers on the questionnaire change, you need to let your supervisor know. And you need to take the appropriate steps. So if you have a fever, if you have any symptoms, don't come into work. Just don't even try. We understand. We do not want the hassle. So please, if you are not feeling good, please stay home. And then this is a notification method. So if you feel like you are working in an unsafe condition, this is the notification process to follow. So let your RSC know, your direct supervisor, and your regional president. Put the concerns in writing so we can have the documentation of that. And then the RSC direct supervisor, the president, will work closely with human resources, with Carrie, Tom, Steve, etc., to ensure that the proper protocols are being followed and the issues are being addressed appropriately. And then on the other side of that, if an employee has symptoms or suspected confirmed case, this is what you need to follow. You need to follow the same process. Let the RSC, the direct supervisor, the president know, and then stay home. Get your test, and then we can handle it based on what the test results are. But in the meantime, you need to self-isolate while you have those symptoms, or while you're waiting for test results. And it goes through a little bit more detail in the procedure that we'll go through shortly. Okay, and so this is the end of it. So just a general reminder, please practice appropriate hand hygiene. Cover your mouth when you sneeze and cough with, your elbow or with a tissue. Wash your hands again. Disinfect, and if you are sick, stay home. Okay, so any questions on this piece before we go into a couple other pieces?
Just a reminder, if everybody could please mute yourselves. We're still getting a little bit of background noise.
Okay. So this is, I want to show you the self-screening questionnaire first. So Schmidt Resources, it's located under the ASC square and the manager. And you really cannot miss it. COVID-19 employee health screening form. So it is just a couple brief questions, your name, your title, your supervisor, and then the standard questions. Have you been in close contact with somebody who has been diagnosed or cared for somebody? And then in the past 24 hours, have you experienced any symptoms or fever? And then just some general information. And then and as a reminder, this needs to be done every single day, and it is your responsibility to make sure that you are doing this every single day. Okay, and then let's see. Let me go through the safety procedures as well.
Sarah, just Jason here, just to make sure that's very clear. When you come in and you go into Paylocity and clock in, if you will, then you take the second and fill out that form. It's something that needs to be done at the beginning of the day, right at the beginning of the workday, not at lunch or I forgot to do it kind of thing. It's very important from a compliancy standpoint, folks, to make sure this is done as part of your clocking in process each morning or afternoon, whatever the case may be.
Yep, exactly. I can't stress that enough, and thank you for underscoring that point, Jason. It needs to be done every day. Okay, so this is going to be shared with everyone. There should be a hard copy placed at the desk. So per the order, this needs to be accessible. So if a client walks in and says, "Hey, what's your your guidelines for safety?" You can produce this. So this is just a little bit of a welcome message and where we've gotten this information from.
Sarah,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Before we move on, we have a few questions about that questionnaire.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. Does the point person, the supervisor, have to ask the agents those questions when they come in?
That's a good question. So that's a little bit of a gray area since agents are not our employees and the executive order covers employees. They're not required to do it, but I don't think, and Tom and everyone correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it would hurt if agents were answering these questions, but they should be doing kind of their own self-assessment anyway. But no, they're not required to follow this questionnaire.
And I can answer this one, Sarah and Renee. Yes, managers need to do that too if they're in the office, as soon as they arrive at the office.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
And just a little FYI, as we communicate with agents today and as managers and you interact with agents, I think sharing these protocols of what you're up to and the information that you're receiving is important for them to understand and feel good about it and say, hey, we're filling these protocols out. Please don't come to work again if you're sick. Those same messages, I think, just need to be communicated throughout our day-to-day for some time in the future. So I think it's just an important piece, although there isn't a form for an independent contractor to fill out each day before they walk into the office.
Yep, exactly. Anything else?
There was
one thought, guys, on that. What if we just have a sheet that has that protocol on there and a spot for the agent to initial every time they come in, or just put the date? So we put that on everybody's door.
I don't have a problem with that
because this is a challenge because of the independent contractor piece. Do we want to? Tom, why don't you weigh in on that?
I guess my thought, they need to know what those questions are, and those are the guidelines we're going to follow. I would almost prefer it just be posted like in your kitchen areas and obvious areas where there's common areas so that they see it. Because the real answer is, if you got any of these things, you shouldn't be in here. But I'm not overly excited about having it posted at the front desk and sign in, or it's certainly not required.
I think it opens up too, Tom, that if some people do it and some people don't, it opens us up for more problems if somebody doesn't, and then it becomes a problem. I think
that's a good point.
And I think that's part of the discussion we're going to get into here is, because they're not employees and don't fall under these guidelines, just what is our protocol and how do we want to operate, and expect the agents to participate. So, okay, continue.
Okay. Any other questions about the questionnaire? Anything we talked about previously?
There was a question about sick time for those ASCs that don't have sick time and they are experiencing symptoms. I do know something came out early on about the the COVID Family Leave Act, Sarah, so we might want to send that back out. I don't know if you want to address that now or offline that.
Let's offline that, and we can come up with a good communication for it specifically.
Okay, and to address the masks were supposed to have shipped on May 18th. We are still waiting to receive those along with the screen, so we do not have those yet. If you ordered them on Schmidt Resources, you need no further action. You will receive it. We're just waiting for the supplier to provide those. So at this point, you can use the disposable blue ones that were passed out on May 7th when the agents were able to go back in the field, or homemade masks, bandanas, whatever you have on hand.
Yep, that sounds good. Okay, anything else?
No, please proceed. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so this first page here of the procedures is taken mostly verbatim from the order. So upon reopening the offices, we need to do the face coverings during in-person meetings, in hallways, anywhere where you're going to have close contact with your fellow coworkers. Wipe down your workstations at least twice daily. All non-essential visitors are prohibited. We do not need kind of extra bodies that don't need to be there in the buildings. And then all non-essential travel, including conferences, is restricted for the time being. And then we will be providing the disinfecting supplies, the face coverings, and the shields for each location. And then this goes over the reporting the unsafe working conditions. So I just feel like I need to point out that, this is not a retaliatory thing. So, if you don't feel comfortable, if something is making you nervous, if you don't feel like you're working in a safe condition, please report it up so we can handle it and we can, address the issues as appropriate. And then talks about the self-screening protocol that we just went through. Okay, and then the next page, it goes more in depth into the general disinfection measures. So the information of what needs to be cleaned, where, how, the frequency in which it does, the COVID-19 deep cleaning and disinfection process. The social distancing protocol. I know that, you have heard the word social distancing more times than you can count, but it is the most effective and simple mechanism to prevent infection. And so, we are asking that you continue that in the workplace. 6 feet is the distance to stay apart. And then this goes through some helpful tips and recommendations for maintaining social distancing in the workplace. And none of this is in lieu of appropriate hand hygiene. So isolation protocol. So if an employee or an agent becomes ill at work, this is the process that you need to follow. And a lot of it is a manager responsibility, but if the manager is not there, it's going to probably fall to the designated COVID-19 supervisor for the workplace. So make sure that everyone in the office knows about this process, because it's going to be important to follow it. Should somebody be experiencing symptoms, we're not going to want to take any chances. So I'll just go through it a little bit briefly, but you can read it more in depth when you get your own copy. But the individual needs to be isolated immediately, and that can be in any office, any place with a closed door that we can, essentially close them off. The appropriate personal protective equipment needs to be worn, so masks, gloves, whatever you have on hand while handling it. And then we need to know who that person has been in contact with while they've been in the office. And then we need to essentially send them home, and we need to contact a local health authority just, should we need to receive additional guidance, and reach out to human resources too, because we can help you through this process. Once that individual has been sent home, ensure that their workstation and the isolation area has been thoroughly cleaned and disinfected, in any place that person might have touched. And then if an employee has been identified with COVID-19, we need to contact the local public health department and anyone that they have come in contact with, and follow the deep cleaning protocol. And then should we need to close an office or notify individuals that have been in contact, this is the process that we would follow. So if you need to self-quarantine because you have symptoms or you're waiting for a test, this is the guidance, and we are expecting that the employee stay away for at least 14 days unless directed by your primary care physician. And this is, some additional self-quarantine guidance, which I know you guys are all very familiar with since we have been essentially self-quarantined for the last several months. And then after that, this is the process for returning to work. So if you have been tested, you follow the process. If you have not been tested, but you have symptoms, that's the process that you need to follow. And then reach out to Human Resources once you return, so we can make sure that you have met the criteria and your documentation is in order. And then at the very end, we have some agent guidelines, and this is taken from and Jason, jump in here where this has come from, because my mind is blanking completely.
Scroll back to the top for me, Sarah, so I can see that top part. Scroll a little bit. So these are agent guidelines. So a lot of these came from Michigan Realtors, and a lot of the major brokers got together and said, these are the protocols in which we're going to operate as an agent in the community, in our offices. And so those kind of reflect the first EO that allowed agents to go out to the market and list and show. And these still remain in place, obviously, for that purpose. Those restrictions with this new E&O have not been lifted or relaxed, whereas we're following those same protocols that we were a week ago from an agent's perspective. Now we just have these additional protocols in the office from an employee perspective.
Yep, exactly. Okay, and I believe that's the end of it. And just a general thank you for working safely and continue to follow the appropriate guidelines as recommended by the CDC. So I believe that's all I have. Julie, Tom, is there anything additional